back to All About That Disney Life. I am Danny B, the girl who is all about that Disney life. The next movie we will be talking about is Sleeping Beauty that came out in 1959. Before we get to know the cast to help make this movie possible, you guys know that I keep looking down a lot in these videos. That's because I am reading the facts that I've written down on paper, so to make my life a little easier, I'm just going to be holding up the facts and just reading off of them. Deal with it. I can't memorize to save my life. We had Mary Costa, who was Princess Aurora, but she was also known as Briar Rose in the beginning of the film. Bill Shirley was Prince Philip. Eleanor Audley was Maleficent. Verna Felton was Flora. Barbara Luddy was Merryweather. Barbara Jo Allen was Fauna. Taylor Holmes was King Stefan. Bill Thompson was King Hubert. Candy Candido, Pinto Colvig, and Bob Amesbury were the goons. That's the henchmen for Maleficent. We had Dallas McKennon, who was the owl, and Marvin Miller was the narrator. Now we move on to the fun facts all about why Disney stopped making a princess movie for 30 years. Here we go. Number 1, early development. Disney wanted to make a version of Sleeping Beauty and he came up with that idea starting in 1938. And Sleeping Beauty was based on Charles Perrault's fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty. Early artwork for the movie was done by Joe Grant. In January of 1950, Disney registered the idea of Sleeping Beauty as a planned production following the success of Cinderella. However, the animators were having difficulty coming up with another fairy tale that would be different from the 2 past princess movies that we had, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Cinderella. And Disney kept telling his staff that it had to be different. It had to be not like Cinderella, not like Snow White. The early story was written by Ted Sears, Winston Hebler, and Bill Peet. They decided to get rid of the second half of Perrault's story, which tells about the life of a Sleeping Beauty married to a strange prince, and just focus on the first part of the Charles Perrault story. By April of 1951, an early storyline was written that had a wake-up kiss as the climax moment and the encounter between the prince and the princess before the curse happens. Also, we had 4 fairy names and details about their different abilities. We had the fairy called Tranquility, that would be the fairy of dreams. The fairy Fernadelle, that would be the fairy of the forest. Merryweather, the fairy of the elements, that fairy name got kept into the movie. And Maleficent, that's another name that got kept into the movie. That's the fairy of darkness. Number 2, rewrites. In June of 1952, a full storyboard presentation was done, but Disney did not like it because the storyline was too similar to the 2 other princess films. Disney told the writers to write another story from scratch, and the writers did that, but they were holding on to the earlier suggestions that they had, like the prince's acquaintance with the princess before the curse and a shorter duration of the sleep. So not the princess sleeping for the full 100 years. It's at least a little bit shorter of a nap, if you want to put it like that. The story artists came up with the idea of the fairies raising the princess in a forest cottage with Aurora not realizing that she really was a princess. There was also another storyline that was added where Maleficent kidnaps Prince Philip and plans to keep him for 100 years as a prisoner, which is a reference to the centennial slumber from Perrault's story. To make the story more serious, a lot of comic material was removed by Disney and said that would be a little more appropriate, let's say, for Donald Duck cartoons. An early version had Aurora having a direct encounter with Maleficent, who tricked her into pricking her finger on the spindle. Disney, however, felt that an eerie, haunting presentation of a victim in the hands of evil would be a better choice. So that scene was rewritten with Maleficent luring Princess Aurora with hypnosis. Number 3, delays. It was hard for Walt Disney to put his ideas down on paper because he was busy planning Disneyland at that time. By mid-1952, Disney planned to release Sleeping Beauty on Christmas Day in 1955, and production began for the film in July of 1953. However, some sequences were rewritten because Disney didn't like them. Also, the film's supervising director, Wilfred Jackson, suffered from a heart attack and was replaced by Eric Larson. In April of 1954, the movie was scheduled to be released in February of 1957. Then it was postponed to Christmas Day in 1957. In July of 1954, Disney began construction for Disneyland and developing TV series like Disneyland TV and the Mickey Mouse Club. A lot of the studio's workers who were working on Sleeping Beauty were assigned to help Disney with the other projects that he had lined up, like the TV series. The project then got handed over to Erdman Penner and Joe Rinaldi. The castle at Disneyland was specifically named Sleeping Beauty Castle to promote the upcoming movie. And then production resumed in December of 1956 with the release for Christmas of 1958. Number 4, live action actors. Before the animation actually began, Disney had filmed a live action version with actors in full costumes. In March of 1954, Helen Stanley got the job as Aurora's live-action model. Ed Kimmer was the live-action model for Prince Philip. Cubby O'Brien was the live-action model for the younger Prince Philip, and he was also a Musketeer on the Mickey Mouse Club. Eleanor Audley was the live-action model for Maleficent, since she also voices Maleficent. Also, dancer Jane Fowler was a live-action role model for Maleficent, as well as for Queen Leia. The live actors for the three fairies were Spring Byington, Madge Blake, and Frances Bavier. Hans Conried and Don Barclay were the live actors for King Stefan and King Hubert, and they were also the live actors for Captain Hook and Mr. Smee on Peter Pan. Number 5, the release. Sleeping Beauty premiered at the Fox Wilshire Theater in Los Angeles on January 29th, 1959. It was then released into theaters right away, accompanied by the Academy Award-winning documentary short film Grand Canyon. Sleeping Beauty was played in selected theaters that were equipped to project the movie in large format Super Technorama 70 prints with 6-track stereophonic sound. To promote the movie, a Disneyland episode, The Peter Tchaikovsky Story, was aired on ABC on January 30th, 1959. It featured a biopic of Peter Tchaikovsky's Disney's explanation of the Super Technoramic 70 process. And it also included a few sneak peeks of the upcoming film. This movie was the most expensive movie Disney made at this time. The budget was $6 million. During its initial release, the film made $5.3 million in theater rentals from the United States and Canada. Buena Vista Distribution lost $900,000, making this a box office bomb. There was a blame placed on the publicity department because the film didn't have an extensive or successful advertising campaign, not to mention that a lot of people were saying that yes, the artwork and the music was amazing, but the stories and characters were all over the place in a big hodgepodge, and this is why Disney did not come out with a princess film for 30 years. The next princess movie that came out would be The Little Mermaid, which came out in 1989. Number 6, awards and nominations. Sleeping Beauty was nominated for Best Scoring of a Musical Picture at the Academy Awards, but it lost to Porgy and Bess. This movie was also nominated for Best Soundtrack Album at the Academy Awards, but it lost to Porgy and Bess. Sleeping Beauty was inducted at the National Film Registry at the National Film Preservation Board. It was also inducted in the Hall of Fame for Motion Picture at the Online Film and Television Association Awards. Sleeping Beauty won Outstanding Overall Blu-ray Disc at the Satellite Awards. Sleeping Beauty was also nominated for Outstanding Youth DVD at the Satellite Awards, but it lost to War Games. Sleeping Beauty was nominated for Best Classic Film DVD Release at the Saturn Awards, but it lost to Psycho. And it was also nominated for Best Musical Entertainment featuring Youth TV or Motion Picture at the Young Artist Awards, but it lost to The Nutcracker Fantasy. Number 7, where can we find the Sleeping Beauty characters at Disney parks? I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm just going to do character by character instead of doing park by park, because I think doing park by park and listing the different characters in the park was just a bit confusing. So I'm just going to do character by character and name the different parks that they're at. Princess Aurora is a meetable character at Disney parks around the world. She's usually at Fantasy Fair, in Disneyland Park, or in stage shows that include a princess scene. If it's not her and Prince Philip, it will be Belle and the Beast or Ariel and Eric. Aurora has her own spell card known as Aurora's Rose Petals in the attraction Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. Aurora also appears on the princess-themed float in Mickey's Sensational Parade, as well as in Jubilation, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas Time Parade, and Flights of Fantasy Parade. She is also featured on the final float themed after Sleeping Beauty in the grand finale of Magic Happens, where her dress can change between pink and blue. For meet and greets, Aurora can be found at the Magic Kingdom's Princess Fairy Tale Hall occasionally. At Epcot, she can often be found in the France Pavilion, only a short distance away from where guests can also meet Belle, in a gazebo close to the International Gateway and stations for the watercraft coming from nearby resorts and the Disney Skyliner. During the wintertime, she'll be wearing a coat-styled version of her dress to keep warm, with the collar much thicker with fur and her shoulders and neck protected as well against the colder temperatures. Aurora is also present for the Fantasylands of both Disneyland Paris and Tokyo Disneyland. Aurora also makes meet and greet appearances aboard the Disney Magic. Aurora and Prince Philip can also be seen dancing during the I See the Light segment of Disney Dreams at Disneyland Paris. At Fantasmic, Princess Aurora appears on screen with Prince Philip during the Princess Medley, but not in every showing. Aurora also reappears riding Steamboat Willie at the top with other Disney princesses and many other Disney characters. Next character, Maleficent. Maleficent is one of the villains that appear during Halloween Scream as part of Mickey's Halloween Party. Maleficent also plays a role in Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. One of the villains in Fantasyland, Maleficent is brought back from the dead by Hades to steal the crystal of the Magic Kingdom. Though, like Ursula, Maleficent plans to double-cross Hades and instead use the crystal for her own gain rather than let him have it. The guests have to help Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather defeat her and retrieve the crystal. Maleficent's dragon form makes a cameo in the Skipper Canteen of the Magic Kingdom's Adventureland. In the SCA room is a map by Jason Chandler and Captain Bureau of Legendary Flying Creatures, which shows a bronze-scaled version of Maleficent's dragon form. In Hocus Pocus Villain Spectacular, Maleficent is the third villain to help the Sanderson sisters with their Halloween celebration by conjuring various Disney villains the sisters call frightful friends. Maleficent and the other villains can be seen singing I Put a Spell on You with them during the finale of the show. She currently appears in her dragon form battling Prince Philip in the Festival of Fantasy Parade and in the nighttime fireworks show Happily Ever After, where she transforms into a dragon to battle Philip, and her defeat ends with the segment centered on adversity. At Tokyo Disney Resort, Maleficent can also be seen in One Man's Dream 2, The Magic Lives On, and during the Halloween season, she is promptly featured alongside other Disney villains and makes a live appearance in Tokyo Disney Sea's Harbor show, The Villain's World. At Disneyland Paris, Maleficent also appears in Disney Dreams, where she is summoned by Captain Hook and turns into her dragon form to torment the living shadow of Peter Pan. At Hong Kong Disneyland, in the Villains Night Out, Maleficent joins the festivities of Jafar and the Evil Queen by inviting a cast of Disney villains to the castle. She also makes an appearance during the final scene of the Nightmare Experiment scene, turning into a dragon. At Shanghai Disneyland, Maleficent is part of the park's Halloween celebration. Maleficent joins Dr. Facilier and Hades in the Villains Cavalcade Night Show. On the Disney Cruise Line, Maleficent is one of the villain suspects in the Midship Detective Agency interactive attractions on the Disney Cruise Line ships and sometimes the culprit. At Fantasmic, in the live nighttime spectacular, Maleficent is the final villain to be called forth by the Evil Queen, who plans to hurt Mickey Mouse once and for all. In order to battle Mickey, Maleficent fires a fireball from her staff at him before the pinnacle she stands on rises as she transforms into her dragon form and burns the area with her fire-breathing abilities, but is killed along with the other villains by Mickey when he uses the sword in the stone. Next up to the three fairies. Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather appear in Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough attraction at Disneyland, as well as Hong Kong Disneyland. At Disney World, the three fairies are featured in Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. At the Magic Kingdom, Maleficent returns from the dead by Hades and steals a crystal shard in order to rule Fantasyland. Upon finding out about Maleficent's reveal, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather head over to the Forbidden Mountain to find out what Maleficent plans to do. Unfortunately, one of Maleficent's goons captured Flora and Fauna, but Merryweather managed to escape. Merryweather and the guests travel into Maleficent's castle to free them. Beating one of Maleficent's goons and breaking through a door with the Sorcerer's Crest, Flora and Fauna are freed with help from the park's guests. They defeat Maleficent. Merryweather also has her own spell card called Merryweather's Stone Spell. At Tokyo Disneyland, the fairies are very prominent for Tokyo Disneyland's Nightfall Glow, which is only performed on nights when it's too wet and rainy to run Tokyo Disneyland Electrical Parade Dreamlights. Both Flora and Merryweather fight over the parade's colors, with Fauna joining in. The trios quarrel, mainly between Flora and Merryweather, over their color preferences are seen throughout the entire parade. Next character, Prince Philip. At the Disney theme parks, Philip appears as a rare meet and greet character. He is usually seen with Aurora in events. For meet and greets, Philip is sometimes found at the Disneyland Resort in California and mostly in Disneyland Paris. Philip makes a cameo appearance in the World of Color during the So Close sequence. Philip is also seen in the Jubilation Parade and the show One Man's Dream 2, The Magic Lives On, and also a brief scene with him and Aurora dancing on a cloud in Disney Dreams. Philip has his own spell card known as Philip's Enchanted Sword in the attraction Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. Philip also appears in a new outfit for the Magic Kingdom's Festival of Fantasy Parade, fighting Maleficent in her dragon form and her goons. In Fantasmic, Prince Philip at Disney's Hollywood Studios version, he is seen in the water projector during the Princess Medley, and at the end of all versions of the show, Philip can be spotted with Aurora. The last Sleeping Beauty character that you can meet, and this is also a rare occurrence, it is Diablo, Maleficent's crow. Diablo has made a few appearances in the Disney theme parks around the world, but he is usually seen alongside Maleficent. He also appeared in a few attractions, including Sleeping Beauty Castle Walkthrough and Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. There is also a statue of Diablo that can be seen near Le Château de la Belle au Bois Dormant. That is the Sleeping Beauty Castle in Disneyland Paris. If you like this video, please hit that like button and leave a comment down below. And don't forget to subscribe. And I hope you have a zippity-doo-dah day. Goodbye.